So welcome. This is Be a Bold Coder, and I'm going to try really hard to not say Bode Coder the whole time. I'm trying to practice. So welcome to Be a Bold Coder. A little bit of information about myself. I am Beth Tucker-Long. I am a PHP developer for a company called Code Climate. We do automated code review. We have these amazing t-shirts, and I have a ridiculous amount of them that I do not want to take home. So please come get a free t-shirt, take several. If you have a user group, take some for your user group. If I don't have the size you're looking for, I can ship you one in your size, so just let me know if I don't have the size you want. I also have stickers. Okay, so I'm also a stay-at-home mom, I'm a user group leader, and I'm a mentor. And I'm also an apprentice, so it's important to do both sides of the mentorship relationship, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I am totally fine with audience participation during my talks, so if you have a question, ask it before you forget it. So feel free to raise your hand, wave it around if I'm not noticing, let me know. I'm fine asking questions anytime. I will have questions also at the end, or come up and talk to me afterwards, or find me throughout the conference, talk to me anytime. So why am I doing this talk? So a lot of us work on closed source projects. No one is ever going to see our code but us and perhaps a few teammates. So why is it important to be a bold coder? Why is it important to care about the state of your code? So how many of you have written code for longer than 2 years? Okay, a large number of you. Okay, wait, keep your hands up. Okay, now put your hand down if you would like to take some code from 2 years ago and put it up on the screen for everyone to see. See, a lot fewer of us. There are a few people who wouldn't mind, but a large number of us really don't want anyone to see our old code. Now, why is that? Give me one reason why you don't want people to see your code from 2 years ago.
Because we know much more now.
Yeah, we know a lot more now. We're constantly learning. It's embarrassing. Why is it embarrassing? It's horrible. Yeah, so our code from a long time ago is not what we want to show people today because we've learned a lot more things, coding standards have changed, the tools we use have changed, and so that code becomes out of date very quickly. So what we're going to talk about today are ways that you can help build confidence in your code, keep that code cleaner longer, improve the quality and security of your code, and make it easier to integrate with other projects. Now, what this talk is not going to be is it's not going to be me putting code samples up and talking about refactoring existing code samples. I'm not going to show you code samples. What I'm going to be talking about is how do you as a developer keep learning, keep up on up-to-date things, find the information. There's tons of information out there on the internet. How much of it is true? Maybe 2 to 3%. Okay. There's a lot of bad information out on the internet. So where do we find those trusted sources? So I've been coding for a very long time, well, what I consider a very long time. I started coding on PHP 3, and I have been through several iterations of PHP since then. I'm happy to report all of my code is now at least on 5.2. I have a few clients that are very strongly resisting upgrading past 5.2, but I'm working on them. So I've been through a lot of changes in the language and a lot of changes in how we expect things to look and how we expect things to work. Now, I've also collected a lot of bad habits along the way. So about a year ago, I was reading an issue of PHP Architect, which I used to be the editor of PHP Architect, so I've read most of the issues of PHP Architect. So I was reading an article by Aaron Saray, and he was calling, his column was called The Confident Coder, and he was talking about different small things you can do to improve your code so you can feel more confident sharing it with other people. And that was the inspiration for this talk, because I thought, that is a great idea. I would love to feel more confident sharing my code with other people. And so I set out to try to find resources and ways to improve things that are small enough that I can implement them in my day-to-day. So if you have ever heard of, or have ever heard any of my talks, you have heard me talk about an S word quite a bit. It is my favorite S word to talk about during talks, and it is standards. Now, there are a lot of standards out there, and I will admit that I was with all of you several years ago. When I heard standards, I thought, oh, okay, yes, I should follow a standard, but it's obnoxious, and I like the way I code, and it's easy for me to read, and I don't share my code with other people, so why do I care if other people can read my code? Okay, well, That's fine, but in this day and age, it's really hard not to share your code with other people. It's really hard to stay in a project where no one else will ever see your code. And it's a very, very dangerous situation to be in if no one ever sees your code. If no one ever sees your code, there's no one giving you new ideas about your code. There's no one giving you inspiration to improve your code, and there's no one pointing out things that maybe you didn't know about. So sharing code is not just a matter of, oh, I wrote this library and I'm open sourcing it to the world. Even the code you're working on is important to share even bits of it. Maybe you can't actually share the source code itself, but you can talk about what you're doing and have that sort of back and forth with other developers to improve things. Now, there are a lot of standards out there, and I'll be honest, I don't care which one you use. I have a small opinion, but I honestly don't care which one you use. Now, that may seem a little strange. Why have lots of different standards? Shouldn't we all just have one standard? Well, in an ideal world, yes. But we don't live in an ideal world, we live in the real world. And in the real world, people have different opinions on what is the correct standard to use and what's the correct way to format code. So I'm going to tell you here and now that it doesn't matter which standard you use, but it's important that you use a standard. And the reason for that is even if you and I don't use the same standard, just knowing which standard each of us uses gives us insight into the other person's code. We know what to expect from the code. We know what to expect from the formatting. And it's going to be consistent as we read through it. So even if you are using a different standard than someone else, there's still a benefit to each of you using that standard. Sorry, I should have flipped this slide earlier. So one of the basic standards that you can use, and this is the one I have slight preference that you pick, is the PSR standards from PHP Fig. PHP Fig is the Framework Interoperability Group, and it's a group of project owners or representatives who have come together to try to set up some very basic standards for projects to follow. This is to help unify the projects, make it easier to share code between the projects, but also to make it easier for you as developers to move back and forth between projects, because let's be honest, how many of us get to only use one project ever in our career? No, we have to use lots of tools. So let's make it easier for developers to switch back and forth between tools. They have two basic coding standards, PSR1 and PSR2. They're both pretty brief, they're not very detailed, they're pretty simple. It's a pretty easy switchover for most people. They do have other PSRs as well, but they refer to other things besides your coding style. So these are the two coding style ones. Now, if you want to go through and fix all of your code to match these, it can be very, very tedious. It is a good way to learn the coding standard very well, having to go through and reformat your code. But there are tools out there to help. So Senseo Labs has created the PHP Coding Standards Fixer. It will go through, now it fixes most issues. It is not going to make it perfect, but it will do a lot of the spacing and the more tedious things for you. So this is a very, very easy way to get your code up to date on a standard without having to spend a lot of effort yourself doing it. It is PSR1 and PSR2 compliant. Also, if you're using an IDE, Senseo Labs, the PHP Coding Standard Fixer, has plugins for many of the major IDEs like Vim and Sublime Text, NetBeans, and PHP Storm, and so on. So it can even go right into your IDE and sort through your code and make things formatted nicely for you. If you'd like a way to make sure that you're following the standard, because who doesn't want someone telling them that they're not following the standard, right? So if you would like someone to tell you every time you miss something, PHP Code Sniffer will go through and let you know everything you've missed for matching your standard. PHP Code Sniffer follows all of the major standards if you're using Zend, Pear, the PSRs from Fig. All of those are already built in. You just select it in the config file and you're good to go. PHP Code Sniffer will also allow you to choose multiple standards, so if you need to follow multiple standards as well. PHP Code Sniffer will go through and you put something through it and it gives you an output and it tells you the line number and what's wrong, and it's pretty detailed about what's wrong so you know what to fix. Also, it has a handy little column here with X's in it. Well, you hope there's X's in a lot of them. And PHP Code Sniffer will actually fix those items automatically for you if they have an X there. So PHP Code Sniffer can also automatically help you reformat your code. So even though a standard can be very, very painful to switch to, You have to relearn muscle memory when you're typing. You have to remember lots of little tedious things that don't seem important at the time. There are tools out there to help make the switch easier. So take advantage of the tools and get to know the new formatting. Going along with that, there's lots of IDEs out there that will help enforce coding standards as you type or will help you do the formatting, especially spacing and things like that. So if you take a look, Sublime Text, PHP Storm, Vim, all of these will help you format. IDEs, again, I don't care which one you use. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on which one is best, and I will let them tell you about their favorite one. But it doesn't matter which one you use, but take a look at IDEs and see. IDEs are just like standards. They take a big amount of effort to get started, but once you are going, they make things easier, they make things faster, especially following standards and things like that. And now we're up to my second favorite S word. So my second favorite S word is security. Security is one of those things that has been around a long time. We all know about security, and yet somehow the world keeps having tons and tons of security problems. And the reason for that is security is often pushed off. It is often skipped because of time constraints, money constraints. Oh, we'll add it in later. Right now, we just need to get the functionality out there so people will start using it. And so security becomes sort of this tack-on thing that we worry about after the project is done. And that's the wrong way to be talking about security. Part of being a bold coder needs to be that you put security first. Security needs to be at the forefront of development, not afterwards. It is so much easier to build security in from the start than to try to add it in later. When you try to add it in later, things get missed, things get messy. So it's important to build it in up front. Now, security is constantly changing. Some of it stays very much the same, and we still miss those things, but a lot of it changes. So how do you stay current on security? There's a lot of different things out there. Now, this first link on the PHPUnit manual, this page is so horribly out of date, but it still has some things that are very, very useful for today, and it's important to know what kinds of things are vulnerable. So take a look at that page, but like I said, it's very out to date. So don't think that that page gives you everything you need. The OWASP site as well, they have a PHP security cheat sheet that they just recently updated a few weeks ago. And that will give you some more information on current PHP security vulnerabilities, things you should watch out for, things you should use in your code. OWASP also does their top 10 project every year. If you look through the top 10 project for the past few years, it's the top 10 security vulnerabilities. You'll notice the list is pretty similar every year. And that's because so many people still put off security. And so what we need to do is really take a good hard look at these items and make sure that we start formatting our code to prevent these things. Websec.io does application security as well. So that one's a little more broad than just PHP. I won't point out individual people too often, but I'm going to point out Chris Cornutt's stuff here when it deals with security. He is very, very passionate about security in PHP and has some great resources out there. He has a book available on LeanPub. He also has a number of presentations that you can watch up on SpeakerDeck. And he also runs a website that's a division of websec.io called securingphp.com. And they have a lot of great information there and a mailing list that you can sign up for security information right in your email box. You don't even have to remember to go look for it. It shows up right in your email. So once our code is secure, we need to make sure it actually runs. So we need to test our code. So unit testing is very important. Now, unit testing is extra work up front. All of these things that I talk about are extra work up front, and sometimes it's really hard to sell people on that. But putting in the extra effort up front is going to save you so much time later on. So take the time up front, do some unit testing, make sure your code does what it needs to do, and when you make changes later on, you can run those unit tests very quickly and feel more confident that the changes that you're making are not harming the code. Now, writing unit tests, like I said, takes a long time. So if you do not have time to write a unit test for everything, that doesn't mean you should not unit test your code. That means start with the items that are most critical. What is the most critical part of your app? Which part of your application, if it goes down, will someone lose their job? Okay, take a look at that part first. Which part handles money? Which part handles personal information for your clients? Start with unit testing those sections of your application. If you unit test even just those few parts, you are making your application more secure and more stable and more reliable for you to make changes to it. Which part of the application do you change most often? Unit test that part, and you're going to save yourself testing time in the long run. The more changes that you make to something, the more handy it can be for you to have unit tests. So don't feel like it has to be this mountainous task where you have to unit test everything or nothing. It's not an all or nothing game. Start with the things that are going to benefit the most and unit test those. If you need help with unit testing, if you've ever looked up unit testing online, you'll probably hear about Chris Hartjes. He is the grumpy programmer on Twitter. I swear he's honestly a very, very nice person, and he would love to help you with testing. And he has lots of resources available as well. So if you have a question about testing, hit him up on Twitter. He's very responsive, very good at answering questions. There is help out there for unit testing, so give it a try and get started. If you're looking for a little bit more complete system, you can use a testing framework. PHPUnit is one of the most popular PHP testing frameworks. Lots of plugins for it, lots of easy ways to install it, lots of good tutorials online, so it's pretty easy to get started. Next up, another thing that everyone hates to talk about but everybody needs to do is documenting your code. Now, I don't know about you, but I really hate documenting my code because what I would always do is wait until I was done writing everything, and then I'd have to go back and figure out what I was doing and document it. So what I like to do is use PHP Documenter. Now, it says it automates documentation, which I really wish meant it wrote your documentation for you. But what it does is it forces you to write your documentation as you're writing your code. And what that does, puts the documentation right in your code block, right where the information is. So when you go back and you make changes to that section of code later on, the documentation is right there for you to update. It goes through, and it takes comment format here. You can use Markdown in it. You can be very specific. Yeah?
It's just like Doxygen then.
Yeah, it's very similar. So goes through. You can use Markdown in it. It's very, very specific in how you want it formatted, or you can make it very simple. But as long as you have something, just documenting a little bit about it. It's important for other people to be able to figure out what your code is doing, but it's also important for you to be able to figure out what your code is doing. A lot of the code that you wrote 2 years ago, it's going to take you a little while to read through it and figure out, why exactly did I do this strange thing? I know there was a reason, and I can't remember. Just make a little note to yourself. Let yourself know, okay, you know, marketing said we had to do it this way, and this piece is too old to interface with this, so I had to do this, kind of a thing. You know, write yourself a little note about why anything out of the ordinary had to happen. PHP Documenter then takes those comments and gives you a nice HTML output. This is very nice. It's searchable. It is table of contents and structured. Everything's very nice. When you go back in and update the document comment with your code, you rerun the documentation, and now everywhere that is mentioned is automatically changed. No more long find and replaces trying to figure out where you mentioned whatever you need to change. It's all done. Very, very handy. So it makes documenting your code easier. And if someone wants to invent something that self-documents, that would be awesome. But in the meantime, at least this will force us to do it a little bit by little bit. And once you get in the habit of commenting your code as you write it, it becomes habit and it becomes very easy to do. The next step is knowing the language. Now, we all know PHP. That's why we're here, right? But PHP is constantly changing and constantly evolving. And it is a huge language with lots of features, lots of tools. But the base language is something that everyone could use a little refresher on, I'm guessing. I know even after 15 years of PHP, I still need refreshers on some of the things I don't use very often, or new functions that have been added. There's lots of different things out there. Things become deprecated. Things, you know, security vulnerabilities are discovered. There are lots of reasons to stay current. And PHP.net is an amazing website. As a language, we are so lucky to have PHP.net. Other languages have lots of paid resources that are great, but we have a free resource that's amazing. If you haven't looked at PHP.NET in a while, it has gotten an overhaul recently, but it still has tons of great information. But don't just stop there. Even if you know the function that you're going to be using, take a quick look at the manual page and just see if anything's changed. See if they've added any new notes. Check the C also. If this function does almost what you want but not quite, and you're about to write a function to modify what it does to try to make it do what you want it to do, just take a quick look at this C also. See if there's a related function that actually already does what you want it to do. New things are being added all the time. But don't just stop there. Keep scrolling down. We have user-contributed notes on all the document pages, or all the manual pages. Now, not all of these are good user-contributed notes, okay? But each of them can teach us something, even if it's what not to do. So take a look at the user-contributed notes. If you are struggling with something and you cannot figure out why this won't work, take a look at the manual page and see if somebody else has also struggled with this. And if they have, what did they do to fix it? Or perhaps they struggled with something slightly different, but it's going to spark an idea that helps you figure out what's going on. So these manual pages are so important. And if you have some strange bug and there's no user-contributed note for it, but you figure it out, please tell the rest of us. There, right up in the corner there of the user-contributed note section is the Add a Note button. Click on that and share what you've learned. Let us know. Our community is so powerful because of the knowledge that we have, but we need to share that. And this is a great way to do it. Now, knowing your language is important, but also knowing your framework. Know your tools. Make sure you're using the latest version of your framework and tools. I know it's tough upgrading, but the benefits of the new features, but most of all the security benefits, are very important. Make sure you keep everything up to date, and make sure you're aware of when new versions come out. Other places that you can go to become more familiar with a project, go to GitHub. Take a look at the code that's involved in your project. Look through and see what new things are being added, what feature requests have been requested, and take a look. And once you've gotten familiar with the code for your favorite project, try contributing to it. That's a great way to practice the standards that you're going to be using. It's a great way to get feedback on your coding style. Now, I know it's painful when someone comes back to your commit and is like, nope, try again, okay? But it's a learning experience. Don't take it personally. I know we love our code and it's our baby and we just made it and presented it to the world, but it's just code, okay? We can rewrite it. We can make it better. So take your code, put it out there, get some feedback on it, and see what suggestions they have. Take that and then make yourself a better developer. If you're looking for an automated way to check your code, one thing you can do, there's a number of automated checking tools out there, so you can go through. They are free for open source projects. A lot of them have free trials if you'd like to check it out, and there are a number of them out there. So Senseo Insight goes through. If you're using a Symfony project, Senseo Insight is fantastic because it has Symfony-specific checks. So if you're doing Symfony, that can be a good one. It's also going to check your XML and your YAML. And one thing that's really awesome about this one is it's going to check your Composer dependencies. So if you're using Composer, this can help check your Composer dependencies for vulnerabilities as well, which is very, very beneficial. Scrutinizer is another one. Scrutinizer also, besides PHP, will check Python and Ruby as well. And what Scrutinizer does is it takes a lot of the open source tools out there, like your PHP Code Sniffer, PHP Mess Detector, and a number of others, and it's going to give you a nice GUI admin panel to see the results of all of them. It makes it easy to run. Now, because it does run all of these different open source tools, it does take a little while to run, but it's worth the wait. And of course, I work for Code Climate, just my disclaimer, but we do automated code review as well. We do PHP, JavaScript, Ruby, and almost Python very soon. So again, automated code review is very, very helpful. It's a really quick way to have a second set of eyes double check your code without having to share your code publicly. So it can help make you a little bit more confident about your code before you put it out there for everyone else to nitpick as well. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
Does it work on premise as well?
Can you say that again?
Does it work on premise? Can we install it on our servers?
Oh, on-premise, yeah. I'm not sure about Senseo. Code Climate does, yes. Code Climate does have an on-premise version. It works with all flavors of Git. So if you are using Git behind your firewall, like a private Git installation, we have it's called the Enterprise platform, and then it doesn't send anything out. It stays on your server. Yeah. Otherwise, it works as like a SaaS. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So the biggest, the biggest thing about being a bold coder is to never stop learning. Now, the moment you stop learning is the moment you become obsolete as a programmer. You may still be able to function as a programmer, but you're no longer going to be a good programmer. Programming is constantly changing. It is constantly evolving. New things are added all the time. New vulnerabilities are discovered all the time. So maintaining this sort of continuous learning is absolutely necessary and important. But how do you keep learning? Where do you find the resources you need? As we already discovered, lots of things on the internet are maybe not true. So it's important to find valid resources. And take a look. If you find something and it says, do it this way, well, take a look a little further and see if you can find other people that agree that you should do it that way. Don't just take one resource. Make sure you're checking lots of resources. And there are resources out there for every kind of learning style. However you would like to learn, there are resources out there for you. You can learn by reading. PHP Architect magazine publishes every month. They have digital formats and a print version. So if you like reading on screen, you can do that. If you like reading more paper, you can do that too. Whichever way. They have new articles all the time. PHP the Right Way is a group effort to put best practices out there. So take a look. PHP the Right Way goes through and talks about formatting your code, spacing your code, good ways to format things, good ways to implement things, good ways to talk to APIs. Lots of great information on that website. And phpdeveloper.org goes through and aggregates blog posts, news articles, everything you need to know. They tag everything. So if you want just security stuff, then just follow their security tag. If you want new features, you can do that. So take a look. It's a great way to quickly scan through so that you're not stuck trying to find blog posts to read. LeanPub. If you're not familiar with LeanPub, it's a way to self-publish books. You can get books that are in progress, but the best thing about LeanPub is when you buy a book and that book gets updated, you get the updates. So your book is not static and becoming out of date. As long as the author is still working on the book, you are getting new information. So take a look at LeanPub. It's a really neat way. Of course, Amazon and your local library are going to have books as well. If you prefer to watch presentations, Nomad PHP does presentations every month. They have a European time slot and a US time slot. So they will go through and they have great presentations, amazing speakers. There's one main talk and a couple of lightning talks, so there's usually a couple of different topics being covered. And if you miss a presentation, you can also purchase the videos later on. So you don't even have to be there if you're out of the office or whatever. You can still get the presentation. All of the talks at this conference and previous PHP UK conferences are available for free on YouTube. So take a look. They have a YouTube channel, and go through, and you can see all of the presentations that you've missed. So there's no excuse for missing any PHP UK talks. PHP Academy also has items up on YouTube. PHP Academy has tutorials on different frameworks and libraries, different language constructs, getting started with various things, so lots of good tutorials there as well. And then Pluralsight and Tuts also they do paid training, so you can take a look at videos there. I believe Pluralsight has some that are free, and Tuts Plus might also. But those are paid services, but they have lots of tutorials and videos you can watch as well. If you prefer to take live training, there are places out there that do live PHP training as well. PHP Architect does training, Zen does training, and Code Academy also has training. So these are different ways that you can learn. Learn with an instructor there to answer your questions right away. You can learn just by listening. There are lots of podcasts out there that are great. DevHell, I mentioned Chris Harches earlier with the unit testing. He runs a podcast along with Ed Finkler called DevHell. It is amusing, not entirely safe for work, but a lot of fun. And it's a great way to sort of keep an eye on what's going on. Other podcasts, loosely coupled, PHP Town Hall, That Podcast, and there's a lot of different series you can watch, tons of podcasts out there. I'm only mentioning just a couple, but there are lots of them out there. You can stay on top of things with podcasts as well. And I would say, too, when you're dealing with podcasts and articles and things like that, it's good to search for PHP-specific ones, but security is kind of generic. And so if another language has a security issue, it's possible we do too. So it's good to keep an eye on what other languages are discovering, new features that they're adding, because we're always happy to, take someone else's idea and merge it into ours and make our language better too. So if we keep an eye out on what everyone's doing, we can all learn more. If you'd like to practice online, there's a number of different places that do coding katas, and these are just practice exercise where it's not so much important that you find one right answer. That's not what these are about. These are about practicing different coding styles or practicing different coding methods. Excuse me just for a second. Okay, so practice coding. They always say practice makes perfect, but it's actually perfect practice makes perfect. So take a look at the suggestions that these places are doing and practice doing things that way. Pretty soon it'll become old hat and you'll be very comfortable doing it that way. So practice the new things that you're doing. And PHP CodePad is a website that allows you to enter in some PHP code and it will lint it and render it for you. And so it's a very simple way to practice PHP without setting up a test server somewhere and going through everything to install PHP. You can just practice there if you'd like. If you prefer getting your information via email, there are a number of great mailing lists out there, but the two I'm going to highlight are Securing PHP's mailing list. It's security information right in your mailbox. They don't send out too many. It's like once every 2 weeks or so, I think. So it's not going to flood your mailbox, but it's good to keep an eye on this kinds of stuff as it comes out. PHP Weekly, as you may guess, comes out weekly, so most of the time. And it's another great resource. It's a great place to find out about new things that are being released, conferences that are coming up, talks you can listen to, resources online. It's really a great quick read. It's a long newsletter, but it's easily scannable. So another great one to sign up for. Another great way to learn is learning by hanging out. That sounds a little strange, but the PHP community, if you're not familiar, is extremely active on IRC. Most specifically Freenode. There are a number of different channels. PHPC is the community channel. It is not a help channel, but it's a good place to get to know people who know the answers you need. And PHP Women has a channel, and PHP Mentoring has a channel. There are a large number of channels out there. So try IRC. If you're not familiar with IRC and you don't have an IRC client installed, Freenode has on their website webchat.freenode.net, and you can actually chat right from the Freenode website through a GUI interface, so very easy to try out IRC if you've never used it before. I promise we're very nice. Pop in and say hello. But I think the best way to learn, and the way I have personally learned the most, is mentoring. And that's not just finding a mentor for you, but it's also mentoring other people. There's nothing better than having to really know your stuff because someone's about to ask you questions about it. I find nothing more motivating to learn something very, very well than knowing people are going to ask me questions about it. So mentoring, it works both ways. I actually learn more, I think, from being a mentor, but it's invaluable how much I've learned being mentored. So how do you find a mentor? Well, phpmentoring.org has lots of mentors available. There are actually more mentors right now than there are people looking for mentors on PHP Mentoring. So if you want a mentor, there are a line of people waiting for you. So please stop by phpmentoring.org and take a look. Other ways you can find mentors. Take a look at slideshare.net or SpeakerDeck. Take a look at Joined In. Find people who are giving talks on the topic you want to learn more about. And just drop them an email, hit them up on Twitter, and ask. Everyone is always willing to help. I shouldn't say everyone. Most people are always willing to help. And even though it's intimidating to ask some of these people, take a step of faith, drop them a line, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how many people are willing to take time out to talk to you. There are lots of conferences out there. Talk to people at conferences who are attending the same kinds of talks that you are interested in, or talk to the speakers, see if they have anyone. There are places online like No Capes and Voices of the Elephant where they interview people in the PHP community. So take a look through those archives, listen to some interviews with people, and see if you can find someone talking about what you want to learn about. These are all great ways to find people. But since having an apprentice is a great way to learn too, if you are looking for an apprentice, of course you can come to PHP Mentoring, although like I said, there's a long line for the apprentices there. But you can take a look in the various IRC channels, even just check Stack Overflow and Reddit. Who are asking questions about the things you know about? Drop them a line, offer to help them out. Find people this way. Local user groups are a fantastic place to find mentors and apprentices as well. If you'd like to have someone local that you can meet with in person, your local user group is a great resource. If you don't know where your local user group is, you can take a look at php.ug, or php.net also has a calendar of user group events, and Meetup is another place where a lot of user groups are listed. And of course, if there's not a user group near you, then guess what? You just became a user group leader. You should start a user group, and I would love to help you. We'll help you find sponsors. We'll help you find a location. I can't say enough how important a local user group is. The networking that you build, the contacts, even just the sharing of ideas. It is an amazing experience, and I've learned so much from mine. And so I want that for every one of you. So if you are interested in starting a user group, let us know. There is a lot of support for people starting user groups. Another great way to have to learn something is to offer to speak about it at a user group or a conference. So if you have to get up in front of people and talk about something, this is great motivation to learn it very well. And there are a lot of resources out there to help you speak. Now, speaking not only helps you learn something, but it gets your name out there. It helps you build those contacts again. You start learning about people who are asking you questions, and you start finding people who offer you suggestions, and you build that network out. A network is so important. It helps keep everyone on their toes. It helps all with suggestions coming in, helps you find someone maybe to pair program with, or help you talk through something you're struggling with. You can't quite figure out what is the best way to do something. Having a network of developers that you can reach out to is amazing. And these are some resources for speaking at conferences. These are some links where you can actually find out which conferences are available to speak at. And I will put my slides online. They should be online shortly after the talk. And here's a resources slide for later. That's why I want to tell you that my slides will be online, so you don't try to read that now. These are a whole bunch of articles on best practices that you can follow, and these do go through all of the nice code samples and give you very specific information that I didn't have time to cover today. So my final thoughts for you today are bold coding. It's a big idea. It's a very abstract idea. It's something that we all want but aren't really sure how to get. But the big thing, it's not necessarily about your knowledge or your skills. Of course, you have to have knowledge and skills, but the most important thing is you have to be active. You can't just sit back and do the same old thing every day. You'll just get left behind if you do that. You need to stay active, actively learning, actively participating in the community, actively improving your code, finding new ways to do things, finding better ways to do things, more efficient ways to do things. Staying active is critical to staying not only bold, but just even part of the development community. All right, you can find me on Twitter. If you are looking for ways to get involved, if you are looking for people to mentor you or someone to mentor, I would love to help you become connected. So hit me up on Twitter. My email address is on the next slide. You can get me there too. One more plug for user groups. Really, user groups are amazing. So find your local user group, or please let me help you start one. And this is where my slides will be, and I'll put this on Joined In as well. So I'll get the slide link up on Joined In. And speaking of joined in, speakers love feedback. It's the way that we can improve this talk. So if there is something wrong with my talk, please tell me so I don't subject anyone else to it. So you can leave feedback for me, 13386 on joined in. Otherwise, PHP UK is either the first or second item, depending on when you load the page. So leave feedback for me as well as all the other speakers. If you're not comfortable leaving feedback on joined in, you can drop me an email or, like I said, hit me up on Twitter as well. I would also like to remind everyone I have tons of free t-shirts here. Please, please come get some t-shirts. And thank you very much for coming.